StrayAllDay.com.
You're now tuned into the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there, even when the success you've expected to achieve has yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of what we call personal initiative. That is the go-getter energy that moves any one of us, including yourself, especially yourself, to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And then what we do is we take all of this stuff, we put it into a series of frameworks, approaches, insights, strategies, and techniques all underneath the umbrella of a unifying philosophy that we gave a name. You know what it's called? It's called Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. And today's topic is we are continuing, actually completing what is our 5-part, let me make sure my numbers are right here. Yes, our 5-part mini series on the biggest lies in professional development. You already know the background of this, but before we get into that, let me give you 2 housekeeping notes. First of all, my daily motivation and Monday motivation messages guaranteed to have you focused, sharp, and on point. As soon as we start sending them again, that's what they'll do. All you got to do is be a member of my texting community. It's free to join. And once we start sending again, you'll already be in. Text me at the number 305-384-6894. And you ain't got to do nothing else. Secondly, Work on Your Game University. You like to work with me directly. You like to have me as your direct coach. You like to get access to all of our best trainings, frameworks, and get access to me directly as your coach, to where you have direct access to communicating with me, asking me questions, sharing your challenges, and have me answering your questions, replacing some of your questions with even better questions, and giving you strategies and insights to take your game from where it is to where you want it to be. Go to workonyourgameuniversity.com. That link is down below in the description to this episode. With that out the way, we can just pick up right where we left off, which again is the biggest lies that have been told to you when it comes to professional development. If you haven't heard what we talked about in the intro to this series in the previous episodes, then just go back and listen to the ones that came right before this, previous 4 episodes. So let's pick up right where we left off at point number 13. Number 13 is networking is only for extroverts. This is a lie that has been told to you all. The definition of networking is exchanging information or services amongst people. When most of the time we're talking about networking, what do we mean? We mean making friends, shaking hands, and at least planting the seeds of what we hope will become, at least with the right people, long-term relationships in business. Networking is not only for the life of the party type of individual, the person who is you just like to be out there shaking everybody's hand and being in everyone's face, and you are very, let's say, jovial and again, extroverted, I guess the best word we can say. And understand that this skill of networking is useful for everybody. I mean, if you're an introvert, or you consider yourself to be one, you consider yourself more on the quiet side, you're a person who would rather observe and watch the room rather than be the room. And instead of being the center of attention, you rather give your attention to someone else who wants to be that center. Networking is still useful for you, because networking, again, is all about relationships. There's no human on the planet who would not benefit from having more quality relationships, especially with people who could possibly help you and you could help them with career advancement. So there is no, the domain of networking is not limited to extroverted individuals. This is useful for everybody, because information and connections to other people can save you lots of time. It can create opportunities for you, and your information and insights can save other people time and create opportunities for them. And when you give, you tend to receive. This is the law of the universe. So even if you're not the extroverted, life of the party type of individual, you can still build relationships and have solid connections with other people where there is a symbiotic relationship. You help them, they help you. Now, again, any of you listening to this who tends to be an introvert, or at least you describe yourself as an introvert, let me ask you a question. Do you have friends? Of course you do. All right, do you have people in business that, in your business or in your career, who you talk to on a regular basis about stuff happening in your business or your career? Of course you do. So just because you're introverted and not an extroverted individual, and you never would be one, does not mean that relationships don't matter to you. They matter to you just as much as they matter to other people. As a matter of fact, they may matter to you even more, since you're not the type of person who goes and the best way I would say this is makes yourself available to everybody. Extroverted individuals tend to be more willing, and they execute more in just talking to anyone and everyone. Extroverted individuals are those types of people. I know people who live in my building, for example, where I reside, who are extroverted individuals. I mean, if they're around, if they're within 20 feet, you know they're within 20 feet, because you can hear their voice. You can hear the way they are out speaking. They are quick with a laugh. They seem to know everyone. Why? Because they just speak to everybody. Everybody they come across, they just talk to them, introduce themselves, and ask questions, and just engage. I know people who are like that, who fit that description to a T, extroverted type of individuals. I'm not even that type of person. I'm not that type. I don't consider myself an introvert either. I'm a little bit of an omnivert. I can be quiet and say absolutely nothing to people. I'm also the type of person who I will look at a person and say, hello, good morning, how you doing? And start a conversation if I so choose. But I could also ignore you and say nothing to you if I choose as well. But I know people who are not capable of ignoring anybody. They talk to everybody, anyone within 2 feet of them they talk to. And I know people, or let's say 5 feet, and I know people who never say anything to anyone. Even if you try to engage them, they actively try to not engage back with you. I've seen all these different types of people. But no matter what type you are, there's no one out there for whom relationships don't matter. Right? So that's why this is a false idea. So being a good performer at your job does not mean that you're always the center of attention or that you light up the room as soon as you walk in. Again, some of you are the type of people, you walk in a room and nobody notices that you walked in the room. And that's not a bad thing because you're not the type of person to draw attention to yourself. It doesn't mean you're not good at your job. You can be very good at your job, but the quietest person in the room. I've known plenty who fit that description. So being good at what you do or being a good worker means you have solid relationships with other people where there's a mutual feeling of knowing, liking, and trusting, and you actually do your job well. All right, that matters too. So this applies to everybody. Point number 14. Today's topic, once again, is the biggest lies you've been told about professional development. Number 14, that you should avoid office politics at all costs. This is a lie. Now, are there times where there are some toxic office politic situations that you would benefit from staying away from? Yes. But let's remember what politics is. Politics is the act of doing things to defend or further your personal interests with relations to other human beings. Now, with that definition on the table, let me ask a question. Who here does not want to defend or further your personal interests when it comes to your career or your business or your job? I think everyone wants to defend and further your own personal interests. Why? Because human beings are self-interested. Every single one of us is self-interested. No matter how selfless you may claim to be and how much you want to help other people and you want to see everybody else win, that's all fine and good. That doesn't mean you don't have any personal interests that you would like to pursue and or are willing to defend. We all fit this description. Some people are more open about it and some people are more, let's say, conniving about how they go about it, but everyone has personal interests. There's no human that doesn't have it. So if you work in an office, you have no choice but to be involved in office politics. Let me tell you why. Because the saying is, as soon as you put 3 people in a room, you get politics. And you can think about what that means. When you're in an office, there will be politics. Why? Because human beings are political creatures, all of us. Again, whether you try to actively abstain from the game of politics or you are actively involved in politics. Maybe you're the one creating the politics. Everybody's involved in the game. Again, you're either playing it in a way that serves you or you're playing it in a way that is not serving you, but you cannot not be in this game even if you're trying. All right, it's impossible. So what happens with politics, ladies and gentlemen, is that they are either working for you or they're working against you. And sometimes it's a combination of both, but you cannot avoid the game. It is, again, is impossible. And the larger the bureaucracy, the more levels of bureaucracy, rather, better way of saying it, that are involved at where you work, the more you must learn to navigate politics. Because again, it is part of the game, whether you want it to be or not. If you work in a bureaucratic organization, let's say you work in the government, there's a whole lot of politics going on. I mean, because the government is where politicians literally work. So there's a whole lot of politics going on in those spaces. And I would suggest you get plugged into what the politics are so that if something's not going your way, at least you got a better idea of why it's happening. And if they are going your way, you got a better idea why so you can replicate it. Or if it's not, then you know why so you can fix it if you so choose. Or you can know why so you can get out of there because you don't want to play this game. But you should know what's happening. Don't try to stay out of this game as if it isn't happening. You work on a college campus or you work for some university. Colleges are big bureaucracies. They may not feel like it because we got the whole picture of a college campus being this warm and fuzzy place for raising the next generation of adults. And I'm not saying that they're not that, but at the same time, there are levels of bureaucracy there for one reason. You know why? Because there are people there, just like in corporate and just like in the government, who have dedicated their entire lives to climbing that ladder. You think they're going to just let that not happen because somebody else is in here and they look different or they wear nicer shoes or somehow they get in more favor with the boss than you are? You think they're going to just lay down and let that happen? No, this is why politics occurs. Politics, and I'm talking about it, this is a good way to explain it. The more bought in people have to be, or the more bought in people are, let's say, for a particular career, the more political the environment will be. So let's take an example, those three places that I just mentioned. I always mention these when I talk about bureaucracies: the government, academia, that means colleges, the government, y'all know what that is, and corporations. All right, these are places where people get in at a young age and they stay in until they retire. And we all know that human beings spend half of our waking lives at work. So if someone has dedicated half of their time being awake to a career, they will get political to make sure that they get as much out of that career as they possibly can. That's just how people are. Right? Whether someone is overt about this or they're more quiet and conniving about it, they are going after what they want. And this is why, if you work in one of these environments, and I know I have a lot of listeners who work in at least one of these, corporate, academia, or government, some of you have worked in multiples of them, you understand the game. You either learn how to play the game, you are frustrated and disappointed because the game is running you ragged, or you opt out of the game. And I've worked with people in all three positions. I work with people who are playing the game and they're playing it well. At least last I heard from them, they were. There are people who are frustrated and disappointed because they're not playing the game and it's not getting them what they want. And many of the people who are in that group, they also become part of the third group. They decide, you know what, I'm not playing this game anymore. I don't like this. I don't like how it's going. I don't want to be political, and I'd rather go do my thing. Whereas if you juxtapose these bureaucracies with something like the entrepreneurial space, the entrepreneurial space is much less political than those bureaucracies that I just mentioned. Now, let me be clear. When I say it's less political, it doesn't mean it's not political at all. There are still politics that happen in business, but it's a lot less. Personally, I don't mind playing politics, but I don't like playing politics in a position where I can't tell somebody to go fuck themselves. Now, if I work in a bureaucracy, I can't do that because I'm probably not the person at the top of the bureaucracy. In the government, I'm not the president, so I can't tell somebody to go fuck themselves. Even the president can't do it. If I work in a corporation, unless I'm the CEO, I can't do it. And even then, I can't tell the board of directors that, because they can fire me. And if I work in academia, unless I'm the dean of students, I can't do it. And even if I was the dean of students, if I say it to the wrong student, I might still get fired. So in those bureaucracies, you have to kind of hold your tongue sometimes when you don't want to. I don't like holding my tongue. I think y'all can tell that. That's the reason why I have this show. So I like to be in a place where the politics can't hurt me. And politics, well, that's actually not the right way to say it. Where politics can't hurt me as much. Let's just put it that way. In the entrepreneurial space, because even though someone could dedicate their life to building a business, there's no ladder to climb. And I should have added that in with this point. When we talk about politics, when you have people dedicating their entire lives to a climb of a ladder, that's when things get really, really political. So any of you who works in those spaces where there's a climbing of ladders that occurs, there's going to be politics. So if you're working in academia specifically, as I know I got a lot of college coaches here, sport coaches, it's not the same in the sports. So sports is a little bit different because sports is somewhat of a meritocracy. Coaching is not necessarily a meritocracy, even though, many coaches may say it is, and sometimes it is, and oftentimes it's not, because you can't really judge the quality of a coach. And if you got good players, your team's going to be good. If your players are garbage, your team's going to be bad. It doesn't matter how good of a coach you are. But in academia, I'm really talking about the administrative and the faculty. Technically, you're part of the faculty, but the teachers, because they're trying to climb a ladder. They're trying to get themselves to tenure and get a certain number of years. And if someone's working in the administrative part, like moving up from being the office secretary to whatever the positions are, every university has a whole bunch of them. That's where the politics really come in, because people are trying to climb ladders and there's only a certain number of spots. Whereas in the sports world, for example, well, it's different, because teachers don't bounce from working at North Carolina to working at Texas to working at Oregon to working in Florida over the course of 10 years. But coaches, those of y'all who are sports coaches, especially at the collegiate level, you could be at one school this year, a different school the year after, a year, different school after that. Over the next 10 years, you might be at 5 different schools, and that's a good thing. Whereas teachers don't do that. They got to stay in that environment and deal with those same people year after year after year. That's where the politics really come in. So coaches, I'm kind of somewhat excluding you from this, but at the same time, I'm not, because you coaches understand that if you want to move up from the job you have now to another job, whether it's a higher position or just better pay or just a more prestigious role, you still got to play the political game, because how do you get considered for the next job? You got to know the right person who knows the right person who has some power. Is this true? Of course it is. This is how it works in anywhere where you are being employed. You need to know a person who knows a person who has the power to help you move forward. This is politics, and politics is not a bad thing. I want to be clear. Politics is not bad. Politics is good if you learn how to play the game. So you must learn how to play the political game. This is not something to opt out of if you're going to be in any one of these environments that I mentioned. If you want to completely opt out of politics, take my advice and become an entrepreneur. You don't have to deal with much politics in entrepreneurship, not nearly as much as you do in these other spaces. If you work in one of these spaces and you hate politics, become an entrepreneur. If you work in one of these spaces and you don't want to become an entrepreneur, but you hate politics, I'm going to teach you to love politics because you need to learn how to play the game because you ain't going nowhere, according to your decision. Everybody following what I'm saying here? Okay. So to be a good politician, I have a whole episode on this. Let me reference that episode. So any of you who wants to get better at politics, this is episode number 2476. I talked about this. Episode 2326, how to market like a politician. Episode 1965, how to be political. Episode number 1692, why you suck at politics and how to fix it. Episode number 1667, I explained to you why I could not be in literal, like governmental politics. I can never work in politics. Number 747, why and how to be political ASAP. And episode 131, how to make politics work in your favor. So as you can see, we talk about politics a lot. It is not something to be shunned. It's something to be embraced. You just got to learn how to play. So anyway, to be a good politician, get good at reading the room. That means understanding what's happening in the space and keeping your finger on the pulse. Understanding people's motivations, desires, knowing people's angles. Because everyone has an angle. Everybody has a reason why they do the things that they do. And you need to figure out what that reason is, even though it may not be obvious. Take note of how certain people and personalities connect or clash with each other, including your own. There may be people in your office, so to speak, who don't like each other, and you should understand they don't like each other to be careful about how you bring one person up around the other person, because this is all part of the political game. You got to learn how to play this game. This matters. And the better you are at understanding these things, this is a communication skill, by the way. Noticing, observing, and having a feel for things are all part of communication. The better you are at this, the better you'll be at navigating any environment that involves multiple people, because they are all political. Some are just more negatively, let's say, or toxic than others. Any environment in which people are engaging with each other, there are politics. Okay, if there are more than two people involved, there are politics, whether you know about it or not. Point number 15. Today's topic, once again, are the biggest lies you've been told about professional development. Number 15, the best ideas always win. I wish this was true. Actually, it's almost impossible for this to be true because best is a relative term. It's not really a way to prove what idea is the best unless we have a clear baseline or a clear target that's trying to be achieved. And this goes right back to the previous point. We talk about politics. There may be multiple people at a similar level within the hierarchy, and they all have different aims. This person wants to make themselves look good. This person is trying to make their legacy. They're trying to have a legacy play so that they can retire and have something positive on their name. This person's trying to get their brother-in-law promoted to a higher position. So there are three people all at the same level of authority, but they all have three different aims. So what idea is the best one? Well, it depends on which one serves which person. So each one of them can have a different idea what the best idea is because they all have different aims. And see, this is what happens in political environments. So this is why you got to play the game. If you're going to play the game, you got to play the game. So if it were true that the best idea is always won, then all of the professional world would just be a straight up meritocracy. Maybe I would be working in the professional world because if it's a straight up meritocracy, I like my chances in the professional world. Like as a academic, let's just say, could you imagine me being a teacher? I think I'd be a pretty good teacher. I'm a good teacher right now, but if I was a professor on a college campus, I think I'd be pretty good if it was a straight up meritocracy. But since it's not a straight up meritocracy, I never even considered getting into that game. And plus, I don't know if there's somebody who works in a college can verify. I think that to be a college professor, you got to have an advanced degree. You got to have an advanced degree to teach on a college campus. All the people I know who work on college campuses have advanced degrees, like as teachers, that is, professors. I wasn't getting no advanced degree. So if that is what it requires, then forget it. Maybe I'd be working at a community college or something. But anyway, if the professional world was a straight up meritocracy, a lot of things would be different. Okay. Because the best ideas, the best performers, and the best everything would always come out on top. And therefore, a bunch of people who are on top now would not be on top because they're not good. And a bunch of people who are not on top right now would be on top because they are good. Most of the best, I would say, and especially in bureaucratic environments, this is also true in entrepreneurship. Most of the best people doing their thing, and this is by your estimation of best, whatever you consider best. I'm speaking for myself, you speak for yourself, but it's true either way. Most of the best people are somewhere in the middle. They're not always at the top. Now, someone may be recognized as quote unquote the best because they're the most known. When most people say the best, that's usually what they mean, the person who is most known. It is a rare thing when the person who is most known is also literally the best at what they do. It's like in the sports world, this happens all the time. LeBron James, is he one of the best? Yes. Is he the most known? Yes. Because he was actually one of the best. Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, these people are really the best at what they do. Simone Biles, Serena Williams, Tiger Woods, because sports is a meritocracy. So the people who are most known are often the best performers. But in every other world, this is not the case. In academia, whoever's winning, whoever has the title of the best teacher on a campus is not necessarily the best teacher by whoever's estimation. They're the most popular. Is a popularity contest. That's what this is. All of life is a popularity contest, by the way. Anywhere where people are making subjective votes or sharing subjective opinions is a popularity contest. So you might want to get popular if you want to win. Now, if you ever worked in any type of professional environment as an entrepreneur or not, you know it's absolutely not the case that the best are at the top. Right? All of you know this, right? Okay. Having good ideas and being a good performer, which are good things, you already know from experience that alone often ain't enough. And I know many of you who are listening to this, I've had conversations with you, and you told me how you have done thing A, B, C, D, E, and F, all of which are supposedly would make it obvious that you are one of the best, and then you still didn't get the reward that came with doing the thing that you did, and it really pisses you off. You're like, wait a minute, I did all this stuff, and I still didn't get what I was supposed to get. And then, again, depending on what environment you're in, people won't even tell you why you didn't get it. And you're like, well, what the fuck? And I can see why people get disenfranchised and working in these places. This is why I'm an entrepreneur and why I work with a lot of people who want to be entrepreneurs or already are. So you got to be good at what you do. You also got to be a good politician, good communicator, a good marketer, and a good promoter of your ideas, yourself, and your work. You got to do all of those things in the professional. When I say professional, what I mean here is when you're working in bureaucratic environments. You got to be good at all this stuff. And you got to do all of these without stepping on anybody's toes. Let me not forget about that part. Don't be too good. Don't shine too bright because you might make someone feel insecure, and then they're going to start sabotaging you behind your back because your shine is casting a shadow over them. All of this happens in the professional environments. And any of you who's worked in one of these environments, you know that I know what I'm talking about, right? Now, how do I know this? Being I haven't even worked in these environments, and I was an athlete. I went from being an athlete to an entrepreneur. Dre, how do you know this stuff, being that you didn't even work in these spaces? Because I talk to people like you every day. So I know. I hear this stuff. They tell me, all right, this is what happened. This is what I did. This is what these people are doing. This is what I got to deal with. And it's a whole bunch of moving pieces. And this is what happens when you work in these spaces. So you just got to know what you're getting into if this is the game that you want to play. Again, you have an option of opting out. Okay, Work on Your Game University is here for you when you're ready to do these things. But you want to step forward in these bureaucratic spaces, this is part of the game. Let's recap today's class. This is part 5 of our 5-part series. Biggest lies you've been told about professional development. Number 13, networking is only for extroverts. This is not true. Networking is really about planting the seeds for relationships. And I don't know a single person, no matter how introverted, who doesn't care about relationships. Maybe some type of psychopath, people who shoot up schools, but everybody else cares about relationships. Number 14, avoid office politics. This is a bad idea. If you're going to be in an environment in which there are politics, you better learn to play the game of politics, or the game of politics is going to play you. Simple as that. Number 15, the best ideas always win. Bullshit. All right. Only in the sports world do the best usually win the most. Every other aspect of life, entrepreneurship, corporate, government, academia, the best are not the people at the top. No, the best are the people who are the most popular and the people who best learn how to play the game of politics to get their stuff out there and get their stuff known. Doesn't mean the people at the top don't have any skill, but it's often not a reflection of who the best are. So to play the game and make sure that your work shines through, because you are actually good, you also need to be good at politics, communication, marketing, and promotion of yourself, your ideas, and your work. You got to do all of those things to make the fact that you're the best actually show up. And this applies to entrepreneurs as well. Everything that I just said, let me say that list again. Politics, communication, marketing, and promotion of yourself, your ideas, and your work. You must be good at all of that stuff and be good so that the person who's actually good, that's you, actually shows up at the top of the list. If you fail to do all those other pieces, you can be really good and be mired in the middle somewhere that you don't belong simply because you haven't done the other pieces. This is the game, ladies and gentlemen. In case you didn't know, that's why the show is called Work on Your Game. And that's why, to work with me directly, you go to Work on Your Game University. We take you through a real education that you can apply to your real life in real time right now with me helping you. That's workonyourgameuniversity.com. Work on your game. Dre, all